Hi, this is Shubham Tiwari.
And hi, this is Langan.
Welcome to the Salespanel podcast, where we bring you the journeys and playbooks of thought leaders from the B2B world. Tune in for all the things on data-driven marketing, product-led growth, and customer intelligence. Moving on with today's episode, our guest today is an award-winning B2B marketer who is passionate about enterprise customer marketing and thought leadership. He's the marketing director at Tact.ai. Ashwin Krishna, welcome to Salespanel.
Hey Shubham, thanks for having me. Thanks for the opportunity. Looking forward to having an interesting chat.
So let's start at the beginning. You have a 15-year-long career. Can you tell us more about your journey and how did you, transition from being a programmer to becoming a marketer? Also, how did you branch out in various domains of SaaS and marketing over the years?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think for me, it has been a very interesting and serendipitous journey, I can say. So just starting back 2001, about 21 years back, I followed the herd. I followed the herd, sort of got into engineering. Um, I was very fortunate to get a opportunity in a very good college because I did pretty well in entrance. So took up computer science and then again followed the herd. Interestingly, joined a startup. So the one inflection point over there was while I had offers from large companies like Adobe and IBM, I joined a unknown startup, about 150 member team actually. Right back then, startups were pretty unknown actually. So that was one inflection point for me. I definitely enjoyed the whole hustle of a startup while as a programmer. When I enjoyed that part, what I didn't like it is the black screen, spending 7 to 8 hours in a day staring at the blank screen and designing programs and fixing bugs, some of that stuff. Again, it's a great job because end of the day, the world is now powered by software. It's an incredibly interesting job, just that it was not my cup of tea, I would say. So fortunately, my world started opening up because I serendipitously met the founder of a school in Mysore where I studied. So I got an opportunity to essentially help the school to build a website, help the school to raise funds in a very, in I would say, not so conventional ways, I can say. So it was a non-profit. The school is still around. It is a non-profit. It's an innovative school which caters to school dropouts. So my world opened up there because nobody was there to question me, why you're doing right. The only question asked was, do you have the right intention, which was taken care. So that brought out the kid out of me, where I realized what gives me a kick. What gave me kick was definitely speaking to people. One, number two, thinking of ideating new ideas, more from business point of view, planning that, implementing that, and scaling that up. Right. Like for example, we did a fundraiser event in Mysore. We started with a goal of 50 people, where we would call a musician and then we would call the patrons of the school. But that 50 people small idea became such a massive idea where we ended up having 5,000 people, in a massive open air auditorium in Mysore, where we sort of congregated some of the best corporates in Mysore, some of the best personalities in Mysore, all powered by volunteers, actually. I think that sort of gave me confidence that, I'm much more than, sitting in front of a computer and programming. While that can also change the world, for me, changing the world was through creativity and through problem solving, actually, right? Because for me, I want to be excited, when I go to a Monday morning and say, this week is going to be great, this week is going to be kick-ass. That is definitely the second inflection point where meeting the founder of a school and getting associated with the school. So I said, I'll take this as a full-time job. And I doubled down on marketing, right? And then I moved to marketing role in the same company where I was working, and from there it has been a fantastic journey. Right? So I worked across multiple products, multiple countries, multiple diverse geographies, diverse cultures, all the way from the Africa to the US. I also got an opportunity to build and scale teams all the way from zero to 30, 35 at one point in time. Scale revenues from almost from again 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 100 million ARR and above. I think I got an opportunity to look at the company and the culture, at various stages, right? When, how do you build a bootstrap company and how do you work as a part of a Fortune 500 company, right? Let's say Juniper, where it is already listed. I was part of a team which were launching a new product line actually. I think in a nutshell, it was diverse, exciting. I think very very fulfilling. I can say. I think the plunge that I took back in 2007-8, possibly the best decision I've taken actually.
Okay, so this is kind of a personal question. So you had an opportunity to work with these big companies like Adobe, but you chose to go to that unknown startup route. Like, what went to that decision making? Like, can you share something that might also help other people when they are stuck with this kind of decisions?
Oh, sure. See, back then it was not a very objective decision to be frank. Again, I followed the crowd. So I had this amazing bunch of friends whom I respected a lot in the college. Right. Also, Mysore has these two colleges, and these two colleges are the best ones. One of the best ones in our state, and we always have to look for seniors and friends, from the other college and our college as well. Right. So bunch of them actually joined the startup, and they said this is really cool, high tech product startup where you can learn a lot around programming. You get to sort of own, design, and code and test and do everything possible. That essentially pulled me, right? That essentially pulled me. And then, somewhere deep down, I always wanted to start. I still have that bug. Talk about maybe my entrepreneurial journey in a little bit. Uh, that prompted me. I think I didn't had a very objective decision making thought process back then, saying, "Hey, startup, here are the five things, five reasons, why I want to join this company actually." Back then, it was more about instinctive call saying, hey, if these are the folks who are joining that company, whom I respect, this is the best company. This is the best place to be in.
Okay. So your primary focus ever since you have come to marketing and everything, your primary focus has been on laying a growth and marketing foundation from scratch. For early stage startups that have just found product market fit and are looking for a GTM strategy, what would you suggest they take care of?
Sure. Sure. I think they have to be very mindful about what to do actually, right? So we can do multiple things. Digital, you can do content, you can do 100 other things actually. So of course, what is scarce is time and resources, right? Time, people, and money actually. So number one thing I would tell everyone is to be very 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 systematic about putting the strategy together, in a systematic way, right? Uh, the simplest possible way to look at before we do before we start looking at what channels is to figure out whether the product has a lot of digital demand or not, right? If it has a lot of digital demand where thousands of people are coming on Google and searching, there is a digital demand out there. So it's the job of the GTM to start with is to capture that demand, right? It's a demand capture process. Versus you're trying to create a new market, or you're trying to sell it to an enterprise where the number of search volume is maybe in tens or hundreds. So your go-to-market is about demand generation, right? Not capturing. So this demand capturing and demand generation are the is the number one thing they should figure out actually. Because everyone will try and ask me, hey, should I do SEM? Should I do SEO? Should I do events? So this is where it all starts.
Right.
So if it's a demand capturing, then fundamentally, even before the product is shipped out, they should start talking about the industry. They should start talking about what problems personas face, and they should talk about content which essentially act as a solution to some of the problems. Like
Right.
Spot has done this beautifully. They don't just talk about things around marketing automation. They talk everything about the marketeer actually. Now, while that's a long shot for a startup, what they should ideally figure out is those specific buckets of keywords. Let's say somebody is in CRM, then you should talk about what are the key jobs of a sales rep, what are the key jobs of a sales manager, what are the key jobs of a sales operations manager, which are the three possible people in the buying committee, right? And then talk about the key problems, right? Let's say how to increase sales adoption. Let's say guide for that, right? How to build delightful CRM experiences for reps so that they love CRM versus hating it. So things like that, right? So
Yeah.
build the buckets of keywords and then build deep, relevant, useful, fresh content, right? With a fresh point of view, because there are thousands of companies, lakhs of
Yeah.
companies already trying to be there in the top 10. And if you want to beat that, it has to be very focused strategy, actually. I mean, that's from a, let's say, the demand capture point of view, right? So from a demand generation point of view, I think if you're focusing mid-market, so in the whole matrix, right? Let's say you have SMB, enterprise, demand capture, and demand generation. If you're an SMB company trying to build demand, I don't think that's sustainable, actually, right? Because the amount of
Yeah.
time to educate people and then bring them and convert who don't have an intent, that entire funnel is not sustainable, actually. Right? Versus a SMB or an enterprise which has a demand capture bucket, that's wonderful, that's great. And then just sort of moving to the demand generation for mid-market enterprise. I think in 2 minutes, I think the whole thought process is focus on those accounts, do this one-to-many engagement, one-to-many outreach, where you have specific industries carved out. Let's say, you cater to 10 industries, take 2 industries. In each of this industry, find out 1 or 2 personas who are going to buy and run targeted focus campaigns, uh, targeting, what are the key pain points for those personas in those industries. Run those targeted campaigns on email, call, let's say for money, some bit of LinkedIn. That's one-to-many, right? And then one-to-one is more account-based marketing. And that's in a nutshell. So demand capture, where you do whole lot around content, search, communities like G2, etc. Because everything has to be powered by digital. People has to come to you and then buy from you. While demand generation is all about going and doing outreach, but again in a very systematic way. Take one industry, take one persona, maybe a couple of personas in that industry, do very specific outreach, omni-channel outreach, with the mindset of maximizing the conversion.
Okay, so can we say that, like, for SMB focused companies or maybe early stage focused companies, B2 this SaaS product should go for a product led kind of model, while if you are going for like mid market enterprise, maybe you can go for ABM, or like for SMBs you can go for a self service model, while for ABM and others you can go demand generation and this ABM and this one-on-one models where you take these custom accounts and go deep, because every account has a high ACV value possibility.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But again, the whole challenge with product led is it doesn't work in every industry, right?
Right.
It works in an industry where your product user, have a lot of power. For example, developer, right? So developer
Right.
power, so let's say, if they start using a dev tool, if they have the power to go and influence 10 other developers in the team to start using, and in turn, the engineering manager, if they go and influence engineering manager and let's say VP of engineering to potentially, have a team subscription, that's really product-led growth, right? So
Yeah.
it is bottom up where there is a user who is influencing the influencer or maybe the buyer, actually, right? Buyer who have a who have a budget to write the check. But the challenge there is it's not a one size fits all one, right? So PLG is applicable. It will work beautifully well when the time is very high. Developers in the world, there are millions of them. Designers, there are millions of them.
Right.
Not necessarily maybe very, very niche, right? If you're building a niche product for a industry, accounting professionals in a specific industry, that might not work out, because the headroom for growth is limited. So once you reach there, uh, it's very, very difficult. Either you have to branch out and then build the product for other industries, or you have to build products for different personas in the same industry, actually.
Okay. So we have observed that you have done several seminars on reaching a particular revenue value from zero. Like, can you share some growth hack strategies or tips that SaaS companies should follow to reach around, $10 million on revenue after achieving product market fit? So we understand that these strategies may vary from business to business, but we want to talk about the foundations that can come in handy when a business is thinking about starting with growth hacking.
Got it. Sure. See, there are various ways to look at growth hacking. Again, I'll be very specific. I'll try and answer. Try and be very specific, actually. But I'll also try and put a framework to it. I'll try and put a framework with a couple of examples. I think growth hacking is about fundamentally being mindful of, you have limited resources, people, money, time. How can you maximize that, right? How can you maximize that using tech, actually, using technology as a lever? And then using technology as a lever and sort of build a scalable, predictable model through experiments. So that's essentially growth hacking in a summary, right? Using tech, you maximize your time, maximize your resources, unlock the maximum value, and try and build a growth model which is predictable and scalable, actually. Right? So a growth hack is not just a bunch of ideas which you continuously execute, try and switch it on and switch it off, and then each one of these ideas resulting into small pockets of growth, right?
Right.
Those are not growth hacks, actually. Growth hacks are those experiments which are designed in a systematic way, where you start small, you start being scrappy. You might not have a method to the madness, but after you do it, those learnings can be scaled, and those learnings can be scaled. And then if you put a framework, right? If you use data and then a systematic way to scale that, it should be possible. That's what you can call as a growth hack. I'll give you an example. So building and scaling your PR machinery, right?
Right.
Especially when you're a startup, nobody would like to talk to you, unless you're funded by Kunal Shah, funded by Sequoia of the world, right? So how do you essentially build that PR engine and also sort of scale it with possibly zero budget or less budget, right? So that is the problem definition. The whole framework can be around, again, this is based on my experiences. It's quite simple, right? Growth hacking is all about going back to first principles and asking, hey, why should journalists write about you, actually, right? So they should write about you because one, you are unique. Second, you possibly have build some unique products. Third, you most importantly, you possibly are, you possibly will become a first port of call for the journalists, if they're in need of a specific information, actually. End of the day, you have to think from a journalist point of view as well, not just from the audience point of view. So the whole growth hack framework for building this zero-cost PR is you build a set of journalists, build a list of journalists who are possibly covering articles, let's say in SaaS, for example, right? There are about 15-20 people in India, who talk about SaaS. So list them out. Second is, do a double click and do a research about what are those topics they cover. Third is, systematically do an outreach, actually. You don't have a PR agency, no problem, right? So you get their email ID, write a cold email, just write 4 lines about how can you be helpful for them, right? Tell them you're a founder, you're building this unique company, and then you'll be more than happy to share insights about this industry, not about the product, right? Industry actually. Um, you reach out to 10 people, be persistent, uh, acknowledge them that the recent articles they've written, how did what unique point of view you found out from that, some of that stuff. And then I'm pretty sure 2 or 3 of them will come back saying, hey, I am going out with this story tomorrow and I need, I have about 30 minutes left, to push this story out. So can you give me, some nuggets, right? Nuggets of wisdom around this industry. In the end of the day, journalists are not experts in an industry, right? If
Right.
you become that fast step, right, eventually after a few months, you build that rapport, and one fine day they'll come and talk about you, right? You'll become the future story. You'll start with that. You'll start becoming part of the story where in this big story they will say, hey, comments, right? So comments from experts. That itself is great. You will start getting exposure. Slowly, steadily, I think if of course you also have to make meaningful traction, and then you should also be able to tell the story of your company and the idea in a very different way, right? You might be doing great work, but if you're not able to articulate that, of course there are a lot of the ifs and buts, but so this is the whole growth hack, right? You build that place, think of the why, why should they write about you before they write, why should they write about you? Build that rapport, use that dope actually, right? Use that dope and inside information about the industry. End of the day, journalists will be, some of them will trust you and they'll start covering about you. And then typically founders, one thing I want to, tell, which is very important is, founders, most of the founders are, they are shy, right? They're shy in talking to the media, right?
Right.
Because they believe, a lot of the time is valuable, and then hence building product and selling is important. But being in the media is also important, right? And being relevant, right? Being in the relevant articles, relevant media, it's also equally important. Sparing that 30 minutes of your time, 1 hour of your time, uh, without being shy is extremely important.
Right. So you are saying that, like, most people have this conception that with growth hacking, what you need to do is do rapid experiments on different things, like shoot everything at the wall and see what sticks. You are saying that with growth hacking, what one should do is pick one agenda and then carefully see if that can be scaled and then move to that direction.
See, you are right. So what I'm trying to do is don't do too many things.
Mm-hmm.
Be mindful of putting a hypothesis, right? Putting a hypothesis. There are 10 things. You say, hey, these are the 3 things are aligned with the current stage. Again, for example, if you just got like 10 customers and you know that demand generation is the strategy, uh, and then you don't have money, so you shouldn't do LinkedIn right now, right? You shouldn't growth hack LinkedIn from a paid point of view.
Right.
Growth hack email to start with, which is low cost and then has high scale. So what I'm trying to essentially tell you is don't do 10 things because and claim that you're trying to growth hack things, but pick your battle, right? Pick your battle and then pick only 2 things or 3 things at a time. Uh, give enough time, money, and put in enough effort. Build a hypothesis, put a priority, right? Put a roadmap saying, these are the 10 things I want to do, but I will do 3 things this week or this month, 3 things next month, and 3 things following month, actually, right? You'll do 3 things, but only one will work. One will work, one will give you like out of the world results, one will give you mediocre, one will not fly, for example. And then you'll put in more fuel in experiment one till that reaches a saturation. Right? For example, a LinkedIn ad is working or an email is working. You constantly pour more efforts there. And you use that email across various places, right?
Right.
And until it reaches a threshold, and then it will start tapering. Then you have to try and build a model to figure out to decode what has worked in the team, then try to replicate that actually. So my point of view is, pick few things, with a clear hypothesis, with a clear prioritization, and give enough time, put in enough money if required, put in enough manpower behind it to call it as a, to call it as a right experiment. Otherwise, if you don't do these experiments with right amount of budget and time, that might be the right thing to do, but you haven't given enough time and efforts for that actually.
Right. I think that's pretty much clear. So moving on, let's talk about Tact.ai for our audience. Tact.ai is an AI-powered customer engagement platform for life science organizations, and Ashwin played an important role in Tact.ai's ABM program, which brought great results for high ACV accounts. Now, Ashwin, maybe it's too much to ask, but can you share your ABM playbook, or at least some important parts of it which can be applied in general? Like, we believe that ABM might be misunderstood and for the most parts, and how marketing changes its gears to play a sales kind of a role on target accounts is very counterintuitive in the beginning. So if you shed some light on it while bringing a playbook, or at least some parts of it, it can greatly help our audience.
Yeah, sure. So I think ABM in a nutshell is about being highly relevant, customized, personalized to a specific account. And if I can go one step further, it's also being very relevant to an individual aspect, right? It's not just the account, but also being very relevant to the individual, let's say, being very relevant to a tech audience in a company, let's say send a different message versus a business audience in the same company, actually. So that's the purest form of ABM, right? Again, before we go deep into one-to-one, so we can also do one step before going to one-to-one is one-to-many, right? So I think I spoke about it. I'll just touch upon that before we go into one-to-one, actually. So at the top is like one-to-one, right? Where you try and, let's say, blast out the same message to every possible individual you have in your database. That just doesn't work, right? That's shooting in the dark.
Right.
So one-to-many is where you segment your audience in a specific way, where that segment behaves in a unique way, right? So you carve out a segment where that one segment has common characteristics, right? Let's say an industry can be one segment, and then out of that you can carve out personas in industry one, and let's say tech personas in industry one, and then try and fundamentally do reach out, engage, outreach, engage, and convert them with very custom set of messages, right? The bit on LinkedIn, email, call, mostly that actually. And then when they come to our website, you can also customize the experience, let's say based on the industry and person actually. So that's one-to-many. So one-to-one is where the game gets interesting, right? So at the top, so there are a bunch of platforms like Demandbase where who claim to tell you that I will give you intent data of the companies who are potentially looking to buy your software.
Right.
Hence, we run ABM campaigns for those specific accounts actually. So that's one way. That's one way of ABM, right? That's the starting point, I would say, right? Where you identify the set of accounts where you want to run ABM campaign. So while intent data can be only one of those dimensions you choose to pick that cohort, there can be other inputs as well, right? Which will guide the selection process. It can be those top 10 strategic accounts you want to penetrate, top 50 strategic accounts you want to penetrate, so on and so forth. I think number one is the selection, right? In the ABM, it's about selecting. Do you want to select 500 accounts? Or do you want to select 100 accounts? Do you want to select 10 accounts? And there's a big debate, right? And then the answer is it all depends on how deep you want to customize, right? How deep you want to customize your engagement. The more deeper, the lesser number of accounts are better to start with, actually. Like for example, we had run campaigns where we had taken like 10 accounts, where we had done account by account, we had done account plans where we figured out, let's say, what is the tech stack they're using? What are the top 3 priorities for that company? What did the CEO spoke? We sort of map back what are the top 3 objectives of the company. Which objective can be catered to, right?
Right.
End of the day, it's not about we going into LinkedIn, we are the best product in the world, but how can we help you achieve one of those 3 objectives? Let's say somebody is talking about cost optimization. Then we can figure out, how can we help them optimize the cost, right? So one way we can do is basically optimize the productivity of the reps. That will in turn optimize possibly the cost as well, right? Because we're unlocking, you don't have to hire more reps. We can unlock the productivity of the existing reps. So I think the framework for that whole research is, once you shortlist, number one is the account, go deep into what are the objectives, go deep into how can you help you achieve one of those objectives. Again, being very, very specific, if we are in life sciences, we help large companies. So we have solutions, where we can help companies who are trying to launch new drugs. So we also figure out what are the new drugs which are getting launched, some of that stuff, so that we use that information. So number one is the account information. So number two is the individual or the buyer information, actually, right? Where we essentially map X number of contacts, and then we try and generate customized blogs for those individuals. Let's say there are about 100 people. We spend time, let's say about 15 to 30 minutes per person, especially when they're buyers, right? Especially their CXOs, to try and sort of customize blogs, actually, right? So looking at the LinkedIn profile, some of the places where they've spoken. So second bucket is the individual bucket, right, where we try and customize information about each individual. So third is the technographics, right? If that company already has a tech stack, how can we fit in there?
Right.
So second step. So first step is to identify that one. Second is to really do this research. Third is about orchestration of the ABM, right? Fundamentally, how do you build a multi-touch, multi-stage campaign across email, typically LinkedIn, and or call? Let's say 10 touch or 15 touch journey, 10 touch or 15 touch journey, where you run a set of branding ads on LinkedIn for that set of people, or let's say overall that account, and then you use BDRs to engage with them 1:1, right? Where those people essentially go and nudge them. They just open the LinkedIn profile and come back, right? They'll go and send an invite. They go and send an email. So all of that are essentially like an orchestra, right? So there are a set of actions. We sort of laid that out. We have this custom message, custom insights written. We sort of string that like a guideline, and then essentially show the campaign. Right? And fourth is really the tracking, right? I think so. ABM, I think, as a overall playbook, I think we should also be mindful about how do you track, how do you come up with those metrics which are relevant, actually. So some of the top 3 metrics can be at the top, right? Let's say you have 100 accounts. We can figure out what percentage of the accounts have you done an outreach, right? So what percentage of the accounts are aware, right? So and then how they're aware, what is the measurement of aware can be divided, right? So let's say you run campaigns and they've visited your website, and the frequency of the visitors is, let's say, last 1 month. Let's say 5 people have come from that account, then that means they're aware, actually, right? You can sort of build mathematical models, but just over engineering that also is helpful, actually. Second is what's the depth of the engagement, right? So from an engagement point of view, if you are sure you want to go behind 10 accounts, figure out how deep those engagements are. And then finally, conversions. The conversions are where where the rubber hits the road. Where you can measure what's the target pipeline you had, and then what's the pipeline that you've built out of the target accounts, actually. So all the way from identification to measurement, I give you this 4-step process. Right? So you identify the accounts, then you sort of do the research, you orchestrate the campaigns, and finally you measure it.
So, are you using like any type of website personalization, like when they're on your website and maybe identifying them or doing something about it?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. So at the third step, right, which is when you orchestrate the campaigns, I just spoke about the outreach part of it. When they come to the website, absolutely, you need to try and customize that experience actually, right? Because
Right.
you only get one chance. How can you maximize that chance, right? How can you build a custom experience? Let's say company name, uh, you know, company name, then building a custom page for that company, and then if possible, also try and customize the name as well, right, of the customer.
Right.
All right. So, Ashwin, what is the most important thing about EBM that can make a successful campaign?
I think it all starts with the identification. Identifying the right set of accounts is important. Second is being mindful about what is important to you. Right? Do you want to just create a buzz in 50 accounts, or do you want to close 2 accounts? That focus in terms of what you want to achieve will help you guide the entire process, right? If you want to close 2 accounts, then you'll be mindful of picking 10 accounts, going very deep. Versus if you want to just build an air cover for sales reps in 50 accounts, then you would do mostly the branding campaigns, right? Not necessarily lead gen. So I think it's the critical success factor for ABM is definitely setting that objective right, and then everything will cascade down easily actually.
Okay, so once you get some results, like let's say you ran maybe I'm a beginner at ABM and we get some results, and how do you keep the outcomes predictable? Like maybe at the same time when you scale, like how do you improve from there?
Sure. So I think being very specific about the metrics I mentioned, maybe
Mm-hmm.
at funnel level we can talk about 3 metrics can be what percentage of accounts are aware, what's the engagement score of each account, and let's say what's the pipeline target versus actual pipeline, right? Um, so let's say you're at X, right? Let's say I'll talk to you about the pipeline. So you right now you're at X. Let's say you only reached 30% of the pipeline versus the action. Then how you scale it is fundamentally look at what I call as a micro and a macro metric, right? Micrometrics are the set of metrics which will lead to macrometrics. For example, if you're talking about email as a channel, which is giving you this 30% pipeline, so micrometrics are contacts, leading to open rate, click rate, and reply rate. Right? Finally, that reply rate is leading to MQL and pipeline fundamentally. Then all you got to do is build this funnel, build this micrometric funnel across channels. Again, all very tightly linked to the one metric you want to grow actually. Right? Then it's all about tightening the nuts across the funnel. So if open rate is a challenge, which is it will cascade down the funnel. Right? So if open rates are better, then you get better reply rates. Now, if you want to double the reply rate, then you potentially, if you can double the open rate, the higher chances that you will double the reply rate as well. Then you got to, then you essentially have to put the hypothesis saying, what are those things which you can do, which are the top levers which will help you increase the open rate. Like for example, you might be sending a lot of emails. The delivery rates are great, but the open rates are let's say 10%. Right? What it means is you might be shooting emails which are not landing in the inbox, but they're landing in the spam. So then the whole idea is to figure out build, how do we increase the demand reputation? How do we send more relevant customized content so that the content lands in the inbox so that open rates will, gradually increase, and in turn, the entire funnel will become healthy actually. Build this funnel, build this input-output metric funnel, and then it's all about figuring out how do you fine tune each step of the funnel so that it will fundamentally help you systematically better the end metric as well.
Right. So, speaking of pipeline management, just like you mentioned in your answer, what are your tips for effective pipeline management?
Sure. So, as the word pipeline, right? So it's a pipeline, right? So it all starts with essentially putting a very systematic pipeline view, right? All the way from define what is MQL, define what is SQL, define what is an opportunity, then what is a closure. The closure is fine, which is I think effective tips for pipeline management is number one, defining the stages very, very clear, absolutely clear, and then number two is once you define it, then it's about what can you do in each step to put the lead to the next stage. Right? For example, a whole lot of MQLs are coming, but they're not converting into SQL. Right? Then you can design a multi-touch campaign to this MQLs. Let's say, what we do is, we sort of, every MQL comes, they get a thank you mail, irrespective of what time of the day, right? Nobody have to do a manual outreach actually. And the thank you email is highly customized based on the message, message as the resource they have downloaded, or the demo page they have signed up, etc. Actually, it all starts with that custom thank you email, and the entire process is highly optimized, where you send this bunch of emails and then call interventions, LinkedIn interventions, with the mindset to maximize that conversion. I think step number one is to sort of design this multi-step pipeline in a systematic way. And then second is to figure out how do you build those interventions in each step, which will help you to increase the bottom of the funnel. Right? So end of the day, we want to convert the maximum leads, right? Convert maximum leads. From let's say that 100 MQLs, you want to convert maximum out of that. So the second tip is to definitely define each step and then build this input output metric funnel and then optimize that step by step in a systematic way. So third, possibly the most important one is pipeline is this binding factor between sales and marketing. Right. So marketing delivers leads at the top, and then sales would close at the bottom. And hence, this pipeline model sort of defines the relationship between sales and marketing. It's a guiding force. If you define your SLAs, let's say you hand over the lead to your rep, they will have 2 weeks to say SRL, right? 2 weeks to nurture that lead to the further step. They can either come back saying this is not qualified, or they'll come back and say, hey, I'll take this forward. Actually, right? They can't keep the lead for like 1 month and without any updates, right? Because either the lead will go cold if there is no intervention, or they're just trying to sort of corner all the leads which are coming and then just trying to pick the hot picks, right? So the pipeline management is also about designing this SLAs between sales and marketing, so that with a single-minded focus of increasing the conversion actually. So third is to really build that guidebook, those guardrails, those SLAs, which also sort of smoothens the relationship between sales and marketing.
Right. So Ashwin, moving on, you also run your blog, Growton. Please correct me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. So how do you manage to dedicate your time to publishing on your blog? What do you publish on it? And, how do you accommodate everything? Because you're also very active on social media. So please tell us about it.
Yeah, sure. So Growton is the right word. So fundamentally, the idea behind the word is, so there is already a grow growth is something everybody wants, right? So ton is a lot, right? So growing a lot is an ambition for everyone. So that's one way of sort of looking at it. Other way of looking at it is there is protons and neutrons and all that, from a chemistry one. So Growton is this new particle.
Atom. Yeah, particle, yeah.
Maybe which feels the I don't know. There are, of course, and as a marketer, I can tell you various stories. But coming back, so my fundamental philosophy is this, right? Where so I spend time introspect, go back to my experiences, and try to sort of put together my learnings, failures, in the form of frameworks, in the form of questions and answers. I think from the audience point of view, hey, what are the top questions, burning questions people will have, right? It can be about budget, it can be about channel, which channel to use, how much do we plan, how much budget should we put for branding versus demand gen. And these are those burning questions. It's what I essentially try and do is go back to my experiences. I follow this methodical process where whatever new ideas come to me, I just sort of put it in the form of notes. That's the unstructured form of it. Then I convert that unstructured form into structured form where you say, hey, if this is a small idea, if this is just one question, which is not a lot of depth, that thing will go into LinkedIn action, right? It's a short form content. If it is something like an account-based marketing strategy, like a guidebook or a handbook or a how-to, then it will go into Growton action. So short form, long form is one way to look at, I also told you how I think, right? I always think from the audience point of view, saying, what are the top questions they have actually. I also look at the trends. Like, for example, I written about a lot of the SaaS brands who are featuring themselves in the Nasdaq tower, right? The Nasdaq tower. And that's a trend. You can see a lot of CEOs already willing to be there or already there, right? So then what happens is only 5% of the world is there. Then rest 95% of the world will be thinking, hey, how do I get there? How do I get there? They might not, some of them would have done some search and then found those answers, but the question is always there in their mind. Right? So I spot this trend and then sort of try and explore the answers for that. That's a great discovery for me as well, right? Where I go and speak to people, spend some time on Quora, sort of triangulate information. Because at the end of the day, if I'm trying to go and tell this is how it can be done, it has to be validated, right? So I spend that time on behalf of somebody else, then answer their questions, right? Because at the end of the day, what people want is instant answers, right? Instant answers, validated answers, no BS, and then all answers, right? Which is insightful, relevant, and practical, actually. So that's how I do. I think I started serendipitously sharing some stuff on LinkedIn, and then
right.
I didn't have a great engagement when I started, but when I spoke to people, they said, "Hey, I saw it. I didn't engage with it, but it was useful for me." So that itself was enough for me. After that, I said, I don't care about whether you get, 10 likes or 20 likes or just 3 likes. I'll continuously write, keeping in the mind, just one simple question, right? Whether this post is a value or not. Of course, some posts doesn't add a lot of value, but
yeah,
of course, will not be able to, write a post every day or every week, which is a blockbuster. So,
yeah. So speaking of trends, Ashwin, which development in SaaS marketing are you the most excited about?
Again, so SaaS is a very, very broad market. So I'll try to be very specific. Within marketing, what is it that I'm excited about? I am definitely excited about how natural language processing can be used to personalize the communication which is again ABM, right? Account-based marketing, where we used to do a lot of this manual research, go to the annual report, go to the LinkedIn, synthesize pages of information into 2 lines, which are effective, right? Interestingly, that whole thing can be now done in a definitely not 100%, I would say, maybe 5% of the 10% of the work, what we can do manually in an automated way, right? Where GPT-3 and the likes of platforms, where you can give a LinkedIn profile, it will generate this blog, which is customized for that individual, but it's still not out there when it comes to real human writing it actually, right? It still looks like it's written by machine. Hey, great to know that you have 12 years of experience in this industry. And it is okay, but still not great, right? So I'm very excited about the AI machine learning, very specifically natural language processing, how it can change the way we can do account-based marketing actually. Not just account-based marketing, I can do a whole lot of other things, right? It can write copies, it can write various forms of copies and also tell you which version of the copy might work better. So this will sort of, I don't think this will make people lose jobs, which is highly debated, but this will definitely make marketers a lot more intelligent, right? Intelligent, and I think it's going to be augmented, right? So I always say AI is not artificial intelligence, it's augmented intelligence, where the human intelligence and the machine intelligence, if augmented well, you can see magic actually. So same thing, right? You use tools like Warmer to get those blogs about individuals, and you'll refine that. Not necessarily. It will give you like 5 options. You'll pick the best one, maybe make the client better, and then use it. So that's that's something where 30-40% of the work is already done. We'll refine it further.
Ashwin Krishna, thank you so much for this deeply insightful conversation. And you have been very generous with your time. So, yeah, anything else you want to talk about if we didn't ask you?
Yeah, I think the only thing I typically end up talking about is marketers being curious, because the world is changing very, very fast, right? So marketers being curious about learning new things, and then again having the growth hacking mindset of experimenting, because the usual channels will definitely, the channel mix is changing, and then everything else is changing. The competitive landscape is changing, right? Let's say there were only 50 companies in a specific vertical. Now there are 500. Right? How do you really compete with that 500? How do you compete with that pack, which is 10 times more? Is a big challenge actually. I think the one answer to that is to get better 1% every day, like 1% better every day in terms of your learning, in terms of not just from a functional point of view. How do you also about how do you manage expectations of people, manage expectation of the leadership team you're working with. I think being mindful of that, I think, is possibly the one takeaway I would leave the audience with.
Wonderful. Ashwin, thank you once again. And thanks to our audience for sticking with us. We'll see you in the next episode of the Salespanel discussions. Till then, please take care.